We just had Thanksgiving. We should probably call it Thanks-taking, because when you're thinking about this myth that's out there about Thanksgiving, about the cooperation between the Pilgrims and the Indians, what we're really talking about is a genocide from then on, and taking of their land, stealing their land, and here we have it going on today. So, but not only that, I mean, we know that this event is happening to people, not just Standing Rock, is happening in places all over the world. We've had, of course, Black Lives Matter, you can see I'm wearing the shirt, has reminded us of the various police violence against people in our own communities, especially people of color, black, brown, people that are being attacked by police, arrested, incarcerated. And just recently I was at a conference for teaching social responsibility, and I met a young lady, Davina. Davina and her mother, sorry, and first name
Heather.
Heather, I don't know why. Heather White. So Davina and they came by our table, the Veterans for Peace table while we were there. And Teresa Rainford was also came by, who's one of the founders of Don't Shoot Portland. And she said, you got to talk to this young lady. She had something that happened to her that's very important. And this happened about October 28th, just after the trial of the Bundys. Excuse me, I should have had some water here. And that case, for everybody should understand, is the case where Clyde Bundy and his family came together on the Malheur Wildlife Refuge in southeastern Oregon, and near the Burns. And they took over that for a number of days. I forget how long.
41.
41 days. Mm-hmm. And for 41 days they occupied that armed occupation. And in the end, there was one person that was killed out there. But when they took them to trial, all charges, they were found not guilty. And when we think about that and what's happening at Standing Rock, that tells us something. But you were there. Can you tell first of all, tell me what school you go to? And
I go to CCC.
To what?
CCC, Clackamas Community College.
Clackamas Community College? Okay. Yeah. And you're, what year?
I'm a senior this year.
Senior this year? And what's your major?
I'm not doing that. I'm like finishing getting my diploma.
Okay, good for you. And your mother, you're doing what now? You're with
I'm with Don't Shoot Portland.
Don't Shoot Portland? Yep. And you were there at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to tell us what happened on that day and why you were there?
I don't know, I've just been going to like a lot of protests lately, just like trying to like be heard and stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. And so like the flag got burnt or whatever, you know? And after that, me and my twin sister just got like a lot of hate for it, even though like we didn't do it, but like we were with them when
you were
the
with
flag
a group
was
of
burnt.
people?
Yeah, we were with Don't Shoot Portland, and like they burnt the flag, and we just like got a lot of hate for that and stuff, and so yeah.
So what kind of hate did you get?
People were just like, why would you burn the flag? Like people fought for that flag, and like people didn't fight for like a literal flag. Like they fought for like people's rights, and I don't think like people don't have their rights, so like the flag is nothing to me. Like I didn't burn it, but like I don't know.
So what do you think about that? Why is it important for I know the flag is important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, people see it differently. For me, and when we think about what's the football player's name that won't...
That was on his knees when they did the national anthem.
Kaepernick?
Yep.
Who will be on his knees and rather than stand up and salute the flag, basically stand there with his hand over his heart.
Yeah.
Same way for me, you know, as a veteran who's seen war and saw that our flag led the death of millions of people in Vietnam. That flag does not represent me anymore, you know. I remember a time when the national anthem would play and I would stand proudly, and even a tear would roll down my eyes almost, That's the emotional effect it has on people. And yet I realize that's the same sort of thing that is like propaganda, that you're almost worshiping that flag.
Yeah.
And that's, it's a piece of cloth. It can be represented. I would love it that it represented the real values that we adhere to, we hope people adhere to, and that's caring about each other. But for a lot of people, especially people of color, that flag doesn't represent that. It has been, what, it's slavery for how many years, If we want to talk about, so this was Bundy, it was, like I said, it occupied that place. You want to tell us a little bit about what happened there also?
That day?
Yeah.
Well, we were walking, we were protesting, we were just walking around the block. We didn't know the Bundy people were on the corner. When we stopped in front of the Justice Center, we did a sit-in, and it just started from there. They had all of a sudden came around us on the whole side and had several flags, and it's like kind of like they were counter protesting us for some reason. That's how it felt. And I guess somebody had asked them could they see one of the flags, and the lady gave it to them, and it got burnt. And at the time, Davina was kind of leading with she had the bullhorn, and she was doing her, we were chanting, and it just, it happened. It was something that happened quick, and she didn't burn it, I didn't burn it, but I stand by the people that did. Yeah. And their reasoning for it, period. I mean, I believe we're in distress right now as it is, and people aren't being heard the right way. And of course, that's what the media portrays, like that's what happened that day, is we burnt the flag. It wasn't, nothing good. It's always the bad part that they put out there. And then both my daughters got a lot of hate mail and social media telling them to get out of this country if they don't like it, and just things that aren't.
Well, I heard it was said that they said go back to Africa.
Oh yeah, we had somebody that was
N-word, right?
Oh yeah, someone that was in their crowd was using the N-word, telling people to go back to Africa. It was a lot of stuff on their part that was being said.
So, I mean, when you started out, the demonstration, or actually the march, wasn't about going down there and facing these people, was it?
We didn't even know they were there.
Uh-huh.
We thought they were gone. Like, they were on the corner, and they were feeding, they were eating, they were like barbecuing on the corner. So, we didn't even know they were there. That's not even where we started. We started at the college, and we ended up walking around that way, and that's where we were stopping. And that's when we noticed, after we were already there, that's what was going on there. So
I think that same day, it must have been about the same day or some day in between, that I was there for some organization that came together to talk about immigrant rights, and they were meeting at Terry Shrunk Park there. And it was a small group. I think Jewish Voice for Peace was there, and some other organizations, faith groups that had come together. And I just went there. It was a small group, and then I got there late, so I don't know how many people were there beforehand. And they were just closing up when I left. And when I left, I walked by the Justice Center, and I saw all these flags up there, and I couldn't figure out what they were there for. And then I realized they're at the Justice Center, and they were waiting for the release of the Bundys. The day before, they had just been acquitted, and then there were still people that were being released, and they were waiting for them to come out, and they were cheering for them and that kind of stuff. And you guys walked right into the midst of that. Mm-hmm. And then somebody offered you a flag?
Yeah, somebody had asked, could they see a flag, and could they borrow it? And no, I don't even think anybody knew what was going to happen at that. It happened, and it was a spur of the moment thing. And the lady was paid. She was given money from several people to pay for that flag, because it was hers.
Yeah.
And it happened, and she was paid for her flag though. So.
Well, that's a little more unusual. Usually people will take their own flag there and then burn it if they're going to burn a flag.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, but still, then the repercussion was calling you names, attacking you, and then they followed you on social media.
It was like my friends, like my
How
friends.
could you do it? Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, like that is so wrong," and like all this, and I'm like, "It's fabric. Like, I don't know. It doesn't mean much to me." And like, I'm like thankful for everyone that served, but like that's not what they served for. Like, it's not like a literal thing. Like, this flag is like everything. Like, no.
Wow. Have you ever experienced this before? No. So this was your first experience of this kind of hate?
Yeah.
So now you from Portland?
We live in Gladstone.
Pardon me?
Gladstone.
Gladstone? Okay. And so, and you're also, Heather, from Portland originally, or?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So, yeah, so we're natives. Yeah, I don't meet too many natives anymore. They're from all over.
Yeah.
Well, Portland's been a pretty white town for many, many years, and it's more diverse now, I think, in the Latino community. My wife is Chicana, and with the recent elections of Trump and the xenophobia and the racism and the stuff that's being said, and then being elected and put in Steve Bannon, who is on his advisory committee on the cabinet. You have a guy who's the editor of a supremacist newspaper. What is happening to this country? What is leading us in this? The Bundys get away with what they're doing.
Yeah.
The next step is you have these people, Trump getting elected. I mean, just to be honest, I wasn't too happy about Hillary either. I think that we're looking at the failure of our democratic system to really be honest about putting up candidates that represent us as people, people of color, people on the working class, etc. We're all suffering because of the idea that people in our elected officials are not able to understand the real values that people want in this country. And there are candidates out there we need to bring. I mean, you might run for politics someday. And so when we're out there, you guys were actually supporting somebody for a write-in candidacy.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Teresa Rayford. I mean,
Tell us who she is.
she is an amazing woman. She is absolutely amazing. I don't even know the words to describe her. I mean, she is just, when she speaks, it's just, I could listen to her for hours and just never get bored. You know, it's like she speaks truth, period. Some people might not agree with her, but to not respect her is, I don't understand. Like, there's so many people, you know, that are against what she's saying, but she's...
But what is she saying?
I don't even know how to...
Yeah, me either.
Period. This system is corrupt, period. And we need help. I mean, people need to stand up. More people need to stand up and stop.
Well, she's had relatives and children that had been killed by police. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so she knows the violence and the racism of
Firsthand.
Firsthand, and many of her friends also,
Yes.
communities. And so for her to speak out is raw. It hurts.
Yeah.
It's painful for her. At the same time, she finds it necessary to do so.
Yes.
But she's not talking just about, when she says, Don't Shoot Portland, which is / Black Lives Matter, basically. She's speaking for the whole movement that is out there, talking about unarmed black lives that are being shot down on the streets. Unarmed
kids.
kids.
Tamir Rice.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, you probably do, is, the book, The New Jim Crow.
One of my teachers had me... One of my teachers tried to have me read that, but I never got to it.
Oh, you got to read that. That is by Michelle Alexandra, who wrote this book, and she was a professor. She was a lawyer that did defending criminals, or so-called, she thought, criminals, often black in her communities, and she would be doing pro bono work. And she got to, after she started seeing these cases after cases after cases of people over minor crimes going to prison and being incarcerated, and we have one of the largest populations of people incarcerated in the world, combined of the people in the world. But oftentimes she started looking at the whole process, and we go back to Reconstruction, when after slavery, and you had the black community rising up and having communities and growing, and all of a sudden there was a backlash by a lot of the southern states and other states, in which they began to use vacancy laws, any laws they could, to throw people in prison and create chain gangs. And these chain gangs would be hired out to plantations, and it was just another way of putting people back into slavery. Well, right now she's looking at what was happening in Ferguson, where people were getting a ticket for jaywalking or for a parked car or something like this, and this would happen daily, and people are out of work, can't pay a fee, throw them in jail, and they can end up spending their life in jail for these things. And then if they do get out, they're in the parole system, and when they're in the parole system, you're under restrictions. In a lot of states, if they mark you up to a felony for a drug conviction, it could be minor drugs, and now we're talking about states that are legalizing marijuana, like it is here now, Denver and Washington. These are cases where hundreds of thousands of people have been locked up for minor crimes, so that they use those people as prison labor. That prison labor is, again, slavery. So the new Jim Crow is looking at not only the incarceration, but the whole political system and how it works. Judges that are involved, the whole system is involved. When people are on parole, the whole social system is involved. So you have all these people invested in it. And small communities where people are imprisoned in what you call for-profit prisons, privatized prisons. Okay, what's the incentive to get people out of there and rehabilitate them? They're getting paid by the government, your tax dollar, and they're making a profit. So what do? If they want to make more profit? Cut back on healthy foods, cut back on medical services, and then make a miserable place for people to live. And then you see the uprising of prisons and people going on prison strikes, and you wonder why. This is what happened back in the 50s, when the criminal system was so horrible. And then we started moving forward, and now we've gone back, and as we're going back, we're starting to see it because people are not speaking up. And that's why I admire you, because you are speaking up you're at a critical point in time right now, your age. In the 60s, I missed a lot of that stuff. I was oblivious to what was going on. I ended up going into the Marine Corps, and when I went to Vietnam, a lot of the things that were still happening back here, I had no concept that was even happening. And in Portland, the little circle that we had in Portland, the news wasn't telling me when I was here about, an anti-war movement, about the civil rights movement. I would not hear about things like that, I might hear about there was a black riot. It was never called an uprising,
Nope.
We never called a revolution. And so you always had all these negative things that you were taught. And even when I was in the military, there were sort of uprisings that were happening within the military. And so that was I learned so much coming home. But even when I was just a kid, I learned very early in life. I've been fighting against racism since probably 10 years old, because there was somebody down the street that was an African American family that I would drop by. To me they were like 80, 100 years old, but I was only 10 years old, and I would talk to the guy at the fence, and he had these hound dogs, and they always had a garden out there, and the people right across the street, hollered at me and they said, "You N lover," you know. And when I heard that, you know, I go, "What the heck is that about?" And I go back to my mom. I said, I mean, I heard the word before because you've seen it on television
Yeah.
and in the movies and stuff, but I never felt the hate. So I really never understood what it was. And I asked her what it was, and she said, "You go wash your mouth out. So you don't never use that word in our house again." And then she told me, she said, your grandmother is Panamanian, and you know that you are probably black and indigenous, you know. So that you're a person of color. I grew up with that understanding. Now I had white privilege just because of skin, right? So people never associated that with me. And I still get that from people. "Oh, you're just a white guy," you know. So, but that's what people don't understand, and then they get upset. Oh, you know, poor white people have problems too. They do not have the same
not the same.
problems. They are not being attacked by the police. They're not being targeted by the police. Yes, poor people get arrested. Yes, poor people do drugs. Yes, people do a lot of things, and those are things that we have to be understand that we need to be involved in. But at the same time, we are not. There's not a whole system that is out there plotting to put you into incarceration, to enslave you in prison labor or some kind of other labor. And people that have advanced in our society because of civil rights movement, you know, you would have last hired and first fired. And I've seen that happen in jobs, in production jobs before, when they was cutting back, you know. Last hired, first fired, people of color. So what do you say to people out there, you know? How do we get them to say that there's more, that we have to come together, we need to fight together?
And white privilege is real, and people need to really look into it, because I hear it so much, even more now with me being on the front lines. You know, it's like, I'm there for a reason. I'm there to protect other people, period. I have that privilege. And, you know, sooner or later I might get hurt. Something might happen. You know, I was at City Hall when they did the things that they did to us. There's a lot going on, and people need to stand up, period.
Okay, yeah, well, you know, this is, we've got, we're going to have Buzz coming on here real shortly.
Right.
And, but one thing I wanted to when I'm thinking about all of these things, Black Lives Matter has been in the forefront of standing up against police brutality, but it's a movement more than just police brutality. It's about organizing people on a human basis and trying to change the system.
Yes.
And I think you know, that is something that's happening with the that happened with Occupy at one point, and Black Lives Matter, and now we have Standing Rock. And Standing Rock, each of these are movements that seem to be feeding into each other, and the same people are coming forward because they feel the pressure of what's happening in this country, and we seem to be losing our democracy, our freedom, and our ability to do things. So what I want to do is thank you both for coming out here, you know.
Thanks
And
for
I wish,
having us.
you know, I wish Teresa was here. I know that she just had a little car accident, and she's going through a healing process right now. But I want to thank her for introducing me to both of you, and thank you for coming out.